Well, how do you like your new house?
Oh, we're very excited about it.
Well, just a little bit nervous, you know. That's quite a responsibility.
Oh, that's all right. Nobody in this development is allowed to own a house they can afford.
We're having a barbecue tonight. Would you join us?
Well, you sure we wouldn't be putting you out?
No, I'll just throw a couple extra steaks on the fire.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Rebecca Lacouture, who is the co-founder, president, and COO of Evolve by Nature. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
So you have a very interesting background. You have a PhD in biomedical engineering, as well as a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And I'm just curious, before your venture, you also led R&D at Serica Technologies, as well as Allergan. How did all of your background, your experience eventually lead to what you're doing today around green chemistry?
Well, I've had an opportunity to work in silk for the past 20 years, and it actually started out when I was a freshman at Tufts University. I met my now business partner, Greg, my freshman year while he was a graduate student working at Tufts. And we were exploring silk for medical applications. We actually started in the tissue engineering space, looking at how we could leverage silk as a scaffold for the body to regrow tissues on. That led to a company and an exit from that company. A second company that we exited, and then in 2013, we started looking at new opportunities for silk. And we knew that silk was an absolutely incredible material in terms of what it could do inside the body. And we had seen more than a decade's worth of research on how we could leverage natural silk and engineer it to do specific things inside the body. We said, look, there must be an opportunity to get this in another form. And there has to be even more applications for this, either on the surface of the body, so in things like skincare, or in our everyday products. We really approached it from a perspective of, if we can get this chemical, essentially the silk material, into a format where we can leverage it in a number of different areas, we can help improve the chemistry between people, the products that they use, and the planet. And so we've really focused all of our efforts around how do we remove harmful chemicals from the things people are using every day today, so that they can improve their health upstream of some of the downstream applications we were working in the medical device space.
So I love this story because it really is the culmination of your work and the focus that you've had for the last several decades. And so really, there's probably only a handful of scientists that are really specifically focused within the silk and silk applications. And you're probably one of the few. So it makes you very qualified to lead this organization. So tell us a little bit about Evolve by Nature. What is it, and what's your mission statement, and what are you trying to accomplish?
So Evolve by Nature is a biotechnology company that is leveraging activated silk to make products better. And that activated silk is something that comes from natural silk. We figured out how to take a silk cocoon, use a purification process where we're able to essentially create different molecules from that silk cocoon by creating different sections of silk. All of those different sections of silk have different properties, and so depending on the specific indication that we're looking for, we can leverage all of the unique benefits of silk. So we may work in something like the textile industry where you're looking for a wicking chemistry, and we'll pick a section of the silk molecule that would provide wicking benefits for a textile finishing. On the other extreme, we might take a molecule that would have benefits inside the body and create an injectable medical device with activated silk within it. And so our focus is on always how do we improve products and how do we look at sustainability of those products so that we're offering people products that are both healthier for them and healthier for the planet. You see a lot of new materials that are coming out and a lot of approaches where people are looking to alternative materials, but they're not truly looking at all of the impacts of those materials. So you might be looking at bioengineered silk, for example. That's a popular material right now, but that requires a fermentation process, which still requires a feed source. And so we try to look at it from a true life cycle analysis, right? From cradle to grave of what is the impact of this material we're making, and how does it create better products, and how does it work with the environment?
So let's go a little bit deeper in terms of some of the molecules. It's because, again, for those that are listening that are clearly haven't spent the last 20 plus years in silk chemistry, they're not as familiar with the various segments. So how many molecules or combinations are we looking at? Can you kind of walk us through a reasonable subset of characteristics?
So we start with a native silk cocoon. We purify it, and then using temperature and salt, we're able to break it down into 75 different molecules. And those molecules are all patented by our team. And one of the most important things that we did up front in our innovation process was actually to look at the manufacturing process. People have been working with silk for years, and there did not exist a stable set of silk molecules out there. And so we knew that it had to come from a controlled manufacturing process. And so how did we back into these 75 molecules and start learning about all the different things they could do? We did that by setting up a commercial scale manufacturing facility in our first year in business that could give us the ability to pull all these different levers and create different silk molecules. And so that afforded us an opportunity to start at both ends of the spectrum and to create a small molecule and a large molecule. So to find something that might be small and have interesting properties when it interacts with the skin in a skincare product that might help with fine lines and wrinkles. On the other end, we could find a large molecule that might be interested in the textile space to look at things like leather processing and how can we take some of the finishing chemistries that are used in the leather industry today for color fixation, color saturation, and replace it with a silk chemistry.
Fascinating. I wish you could continue a little bit more. You actually have a few more minutes if you'd like to go further and elaborate.
Sure. And so we have really focused on how do we create these different molecules? How do we take those molecules and capture their properties? How do we find a molecule that might have a hydrophobic region on it or a hydrophilic region on it that could be leveraged? How do we look at them in different combinations to create the properties that we're after? So I'll give you a few examples. So we have leveraged activated silk to create a skincare line. That skincare line has products that all have 12 ingredients or less in them. And silk is playing a critical role in that. Most people don't turn over their skincare and see an ingredient list of 12 items. Usually there's 40 to 90 items in a typical lotion. And that's made possible because silk is serving to stabilize the other active ingredients. It's serving as an active ingredient itself, partnering with your skin's collagen to help firm your skin. And it's replacing a lot of the fillers that are used in skincare products today. So we've looked at it in that front. I myself am a cancer survivor. And so I, in my 20s, went through a battle with ovarian cancer. That was obviously a very life-changing experience for me on a number of fronts. It was right in the heart of when we were working with Silk Technologies for medical implantables. I was 20-something and went to my oncologist and said, okay, what does life look like? What do I need to do? And he said, you've got to look at what you're putting on and in your body. And that was kind of the start of this journey for me in terms of how do we create products that are healthier for us. And so, that skincare line was developed with the concept of if we can create something with minimal ingredients that can still provide the results that people expect, that someone could use at every stage of life, then that really allows them the opportunity to feel comfortable knowing, okay, I was just diagnosed with cancer. I can actually continue to use my skincare products because there's not an ingredient in here that's going to irritate my skin. And then taking that one step further, it's looking at, now you jump in the shower, you're washing your skincare off, it's going down the drain. And I don't think a lot of people step back and make that leap to what I'm putting on my body is also going into the environment. It's washing into our waterways and could have an impact down the road. And so we, in all of our products, skincare being a great example there, are truly looking at, how do we impact the environment in the least way possible with fully biodegradable products. A recent example of leveraging a silk molecule is looking at the hand sanitizer space. We entered 2020 without a hand sanitizer product. The pandemic obviously hit, and we looked around and saw just a plea from first line responders in the area for PPE. And so we looked and said, is there an opportunity for us to create a product here? This is now a product that people are using in a much higher quantity than we ever expected. So the team was able to quickly develop and test a 4-ingredient hand sanitizer that leverages activated silk so it doesn't leave your skin dry, but it still provides 99.9% kill of germs and bacteria on the skin. And so it was the same design approach that we're always taking. How do we put in minimal ingredients that have purpose, that deliver the results that consumers are expecting, leveraging these activated silk molecules?
So, I think, again, 75 molecules and, of course, the various combinations and derivatives that's going to be out there, the potential applications inside and outside of the body and even environmental that we haven't even discussed is probably vast, I'm sure. You've already exited, I believe, twice, and this is your, third venture. Why actually create the products? Why not just simply become a massive, patent holding company that license across different sectors?
Sure. So I think that there's the opportunity to partner with folks to create products, which we are certainly doing in many different industries. We have some great partners on both the textile and skincare front. But there's also a need to truly give people confidence, right? So this activated silk can be used across a number of different industries. And if a consumer stumbles upon it in skincare and likes the promise of the products, then to have the activated silk brand and the Evolved by Nature brand and have them know that that means someone took this extra care in creating a product that's healthy for them, healthy for the environment, and will perform, and being able to now look for that in other industries as well. I think will provide a continuity to the consumer across different areas in skincare and textiles. That's not to say that we are creating all of the products ourselves. We're creating different demonstration points where we can show here's an interesting product that we're working on. And then we might have a partner who comes in who has the marketing team set up and the sales team set up to actually take that product to market. So there's a number of different opportunities for us to partner along the entire development pathway.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the overall, footprint in terms of carbon footprint. You talked about some of the bioengineer silk that goes through a fermentation process, and for that they actually have to, feed it, and of course there's certain outcomes or externalities out of that. Let's first talk about source. How does it work in terms of the source? And again, silk is such a large, commodity. I'm sure the supply side is pretty stable. But is this something that is you're just sourcing on a raw basis, or can this be also replicated within a lab environment? What's the approach?
So our approach is to source from nature and to take the cocoon and start with that as our feed source for the chemistry that we're making. And there is an ample supply of cocoons. If you look at the textile market, it's a fraction of 1% of the textile market's cocoons that we would need. I think an interesting point in terms of the environment is actually thinking about that cocoon. So in the textile industry, they want the biggest and most beautiful cocoons to create garments from because they're going to reel the silk, create a fiber, create a fabric. In our case, we're actually taking the silk cocoon and digesting it to get the protein sequence that's within the cocoon. And that protein sequence is conserved, whether it's a rainy year or a drought year, and there are differences in the cocoon shape and quality. And so we can actually help stabilize the supply chain of some of these smaller family farms that are working in the silk industry because we can actually purchase cocoons that the textile industry would not be interested in. And so we can use any grade of silk, from essentially the trash of the industry up to the highest grades of silk. And so that affords us an opportunity to work with any variety of suppliers of natural cocoons. And we've taken the step of going all the way back and actually meeting some of the farmers that are working in the cooperatives that we're purchasing cocoons from, so that we can understand the handling of those cocoons from the start of their journey all the way through to our finished product. Looking at things like, are the farms where the mulberry leaves are grown that will be fed to the silkworm irrigation fed? Are they rainwater fed? What are they using for fertilizer? In many instances, they can actually use the silkworms themselves for fertilizer for the farms. And so really starting back at that base product to make sure we're finding a sustainable process. And we've done a complete life cycle analysis to look at that process, starting from the cocoons, their transport to us. We're working in a facility where we purchase all renewable energy, and that energy is used to then purify and convert the silk from a fiber form into a liquid form in water.
I think one of the things that comes to mind is, especially on the external use and cosmetics, is that there's just a lot of fat, especially on the cosmetic side, of certain ingredients that gets kind of trendy for a period of time. And the issue that I see is that many of the consumers really don't fundamentally understand the deep science of it. So what are you doing to make sure that, first, the brands and the manufacturers you guys are partnering, they understand, but how are you making sure that the end users really understand the difference and appreciate and are willing to pay that extra premium to, consider purchasing an Evolved by Nature product?
So we're doing two things. Coming from an engineering background, and my business partner, Greg, is a chemist and biotechnology engineer by training. Science is near and dear to our hearts, right? So we feel that there is tremendous value in actually creating a product based in science. And so to us, it's not okay just to deliver a product to the customer and say it works better. We're doing research on the bench and in clinical studies to actually show the performance of products. We're studying the silk molecules in different in vitro systems where we can actually look and understand what type of activity that molecule might have. And so to us, we're collecting this body of research. We're working on a number of different publications that could be put out from a peer-reviewed perspective to support the science. And then I truly believe a lot of it is having those clinical studies and sharing with the consumer the actual results that they can expect to see, and being fully transparent in terms of the ingredients that are in the products and what their purposes are.
Yeah, I really like this approach because typically, the approach that you're taking is more kind of like the 510K FDA approach of clinical trial 1, 2, 3. But here it's for external use, and I don't think you guys have to go through the FDA process, but the rigor and the studies, I think, really is, to me, the pivotal point where even if you're not a scientist as a consumer, you understand that a body of researchers, a peer-reviewed journal, have evaluated the merit of this and have seen that the data actually does in fact show improvements. So I think that's really the right approach to do it. And of course, from a storytelling, making sure that gets presented in a digestible fashion for kind of the mainstream.
Absolutely.
How do you, again, I think I've seen a lot of, consumer brands or companies that have, a deep science bench and understanding, but have difficulties kind of translating the real benefits to the consumers. Aside from the clinical side and the studies, what are your thoughts, or what are you doing on the marketing side so that you can really bridge that, two fields?
Absolutely. We have a phenomenal team that we've put in place to support us on the marketing side of the business as well. And so, while I've focused on the engineering and operations side of the business and the clinical and regulatory pieces, we have a great team in-house who's looking at what are the spaces in the market where the consumer needs a new product, and how do we fit into those spaces, and how do we talk about our products so that consumers can understand them? How do we make our products accessible to all? And that's, not just from a price point, but also from the description of those products. And so how do we ensure that people can understand the benefits of using the product. And so the team is really working on clearly articulating for people when we create something like hand sanitizer, we're using this specific silk molecule within it. The reason the silk molecule is in it is to create a barrier on the surface of your skin. That barrier will help hold moisture into your skin. And so while you're getting the desired efficacy of the product with the killing of germs, which is why people are using hand sanitizer, you're getting the skincare benefit of a skin barrier and hydration of your skin. So they're really focusing on trying to connect all of the dots of our products. What's the science behind it? What's the efficacy? But then also what are the benefits that you as a consumer will see to your health and to the planet's?
Slightly off topic, I know there's a startup that's working on a biofungicide. So it's essentially a natural product that gets placed onto produce and vegetables to elongate the shelf life, so that the net effect is that we have less waste and the greenhouse emissions from the waste. Again, there's so many potential applications. I'm not even closely fractionally understanding of the 75 molecules that are out there, but there's got to be so many applications. How do you start to prioritize what to go next, even within Evolve by Nature, but also outside of this particular domain that you guys are specializing in?
Absolutely. We've taken a path where we started in the skincare space. We had come from implantable medical devices. We understood the science of the skin, and looking at that on the surface of the skin seemed like a great place to start. It was somewhere where we could iterate quickly. We had capabilities in-house to be able to formulate. And so we started in that space with a mission of creating better products that don't have any harmful chemicals in them that could be used at every stage of life. Working in skincare actually caused us to jump into the textile space next. We looked at it and said, oh, you're putting this lotion on your legs before you go into yoga, and then you're putting your yoga pants on. And it was surprising, even to me as an engineer working in the industry, how many chemicals are actually on the surface of your yoga pants. They're coated often in 3 to 5 chemicals to help with the color fastness, to help with the feel, to help with the longevity of them. And so we looked at that and said, oh, wow, we're focused on skincare, but now you have this other material that you're putting on the surface of your skin and you're sweating in, and you're probably pulling those chemicals off of the surface and into your skin. And so that was a logical next step for us, was starting to look at the textile industry, understanding the purpose of the chemistries that were being put on these fabrics, and how could we leverage some of these different molecules that we had to work to get the same benefits that the consumer was expecting, but without these chemistries that would be coming off that are often undisclosed to the end user. Right? You're buying a pair of yoga pants and you're certainly not thinking about what's on the surface of them. And you're not thinking about, when you throw them in the washing machine, what's actually going out with your waterways. There's been an interesting fad, a little bit off topic from your question, but an interesting fad looking at, recycled materials for clothing and recycling clothing. And it's an area where we actually think we could help with circularity, because one of the challenges in that space is you have these chemistries that are on the surface of the material. So now when you go to recycle them, you're actually embedding the chemistries into the material itself and then applying more chemistries to them. So it makes it challenging from a consistency perspective to get materials. But if you're using something like activated silk, that would give a different opportunity to actually be able to make the material more recyclable. So
I'm very, 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 very excited. And of course, extrapolating, once you get into textiles, you'll get into bed sheets and things that would basically our bodies touch, whether it's cardseat materials, pillows and so forth. So, I think these are very important. And I think what happens is over time, our bodies absorb and digest and just come in contact with toxins and whatnot. And to your early experience, the work that you're doing effectively helps mitigate the potential, major diseases that we may face because of the fact that we're just constantly surrounded and immersed in these chemicals, harsh chemicals that we're not even aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to abide by the precautionary principle that others have described out there. It's not easy to point to any one thing in your life and say, if you use this, you'll cause cancer. But certainly, if you have the opportunity to choose something that is not harmful and it's something you're going to use over and over again in your life, then why not give yourself that opportunity?
Good. Well, it's a beautiful story. And with that, I've been joined by Dr. Rebecca Lacouture, who is the president and COO of Evolve by Nature. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks so much, Scott.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.